everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your email questions and comments, dj@ArtistFirst.com. Now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Well, I'm Michael Lyons, I think.
And I'm Margaret.
And welcome to the Soul of the Everyman, where the points do not matter. Points do not count. And today we are going to give up defining ourselves, which means the points really don't matter.
That's true.
And none of the points that we've made for the last 5 or 6 years have actually mattered. But that's okay. As long as you're playing along at home, we don't care. But tonight we have a wonderful Tolle quote, which I'm going to read because Margaret is her voice is a little under the weather because of allergies, and mine's not great either, so you're going to have to suffer through with this a bit. But I'm going to start off with Tolle's quote, and it goes and starts, as we mentioned, give up defining yourself to yourself or to others. You won't die. In fact, you will come to life. And don't be concerned with how others define you. When they define you, they're limiting themselves. So it's their problem. Whenever you interact with people, don't be there primarily as a function or a role, but as the field of conscious presence. You can only lose something that you have, but you cannot lose something that you are. And if you are a conscious presence, you can't lose it. And that's Eckhart Tolle. And I thought it was a lovely, wonderful, somewhat long quote, but we're going to go for it.
Yes, it's a little lengthy.
A little lengthy, but, Tolle is very pithy, and every sentence here is lovely. But I saw shorter versions of this, which basically were the first sentence or two. Give up defining yourself to yourself or to others. You won't die. You will come to life. And I think that's an amazingly pithy and prescient way of coming at this topic, because what people are told from almost the very beginning of their life, of their reasoning life, 7 years old and on, let's say, to define themselves. What do you want to be when you grow up? Define yourself. And then they fall into the habits of saying, well, I'm this, I'm an accountant, I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, I'm a father, I'm a mother. And these are all, as he says a little bit later on in this quote, these are all roles, right. But they aren't who you are. And to the extent that you define yourself as a role, you're stuffing yourself into a box. You're limiting yourself in one regard. And then it is when people define you, what are they doing? We've always talked about this. They're stuffing you in their box, or into a box anyway that they want. Well, this is what you are, so I know what to do with you.
Well, it's very interesting to see the way people think about things, because you get trained. You get trained when you're young. As you said, that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what are you? And asking the child to put a name to whatever it was they were playing at.
That's a great one. What are you doing? What are you playing?
Well, you can
define it.
Well, you can ask what they're playing, but then asking, well, do you want to play? If it's a role, then you're like, dress up. And that's fine. It doesn't mean that's who you are, but you do understand you're dressing up. It's not an I am, but I'm pretending to be.
Right.
Which is a very immediate distinction that has to be made. It's like,
and subtle, too.
Well, you have the kids rolling around on the floor going, meow, meow. They want to be cats. And you're like, okay, kitty. You're pretending to be a kitty? Okay. And you just pretend along with them. But I had met a young a young girl, early 20s, when we were in the store. And she was part of that crew that really wound up wanting to be identified as a cat. I'm serious. I looked at her like, you are human, you know. But she would put the ears on and run around with these like little hand gestures, pretending to be a cat and making the movements and stuff. I'm just like, okay, can you play pretend in another place? If you want to play pretend to be a rock, I will be happy for you.
We'll let you in. But you have to be very, very quiet.
Well, that's the thing. If you can sit like a rock.
What's that Buddhist?
Huh?
Learn the lesson of the rock or something like that? You have to sit and be still, to the stillness of a rock.
Rocks know how to be grounded.
Rocks? Wait a minute. There's a T-shirt in that. Rocks know how to be.
How to be grounded.
How to be grounded.
It's just, but we met some very interesting people at the store.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, it gets into that mindset of it's more than you can be what you want to be. It's sort of like you can be whatever you want to pretend to be, which, you know, you looked at this and you went, okay, wait a minute. Let's start back in the beginning. You're a human.
Well, you're a being.
Yes.
And I think Tolle is really talking about this in the sense of, defining yourself to, in other words, using or letting or allowing the ego to seize upon a particular definition and say, that's what I am. Maybe the example of pretending is actually much more harmless. If you're truly pretending,
well, you know you're pretending. That's
right?
Different.
And this is perfectly fine because well, I am a being, and as right now I want to pretend to be whatever. But when you're almost put on the spot, say, well, as we said earlier, what do you want to be when you grow up? And what they're really saying is what box do you want to fit yourself in? And then, okay, well then, if you want to be that, you have to do this and this and this and this, and you have to do these lessons and that plan and the 7 steps and all this other stuff that go with that, the definition.
Yeah, according to the way our society works, you need to obtain this degree or this skill set or this, and they basically have it all pre-planned for you. And truth of the matter is, many times it's they're not even checking the state of the child or the little one. They'll just sit and listen and see what they say.
Well, yeah, if you're allowing them to be, rather than putting them on the spot and making them feel that they have to choose or they have to define.
Well, see, the statement by Tolle where he says, give up defining yourself to yourself or to others. And when you're asking a child, you're basically demanding them to define themselves to you.
To you, exactly.
Okay.
Define themselves to you.
And when it's taught at an early age, you think that this has got to be something that I've got to be doing.
Yeah.
But the phrase, you won't die, is a lovely phrase. You won't die. You will function, even without someone projecting a role on you.
And why do people feel that they will die? Because people feel if you strip away their role, that there's an existential threat.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're really, really tied up in it, and you tell them, they say, I'm the best, whatever in the world, and you prove to them or you show them that you're not. Not only are you not, but that it was all pretense. That it cracks something basic in their psyche, and they can fall into a pit because it feels as though they are dying. What's really being threatened, though, here is the ego identity, the thing which has latched on and put a lot of energy into the definition.
Right. It's the ego that has set up the boundaries of the definition of who you are.
Yes.
And you've got to come up to all these different levels and layers to satisfy the ego.
And it's bought into it hard.
Well, it's basically convinced you that this has got to be the only way this is going to work. You're not going to be able to live unless you do it this way.
Right.
And just that simple statement, you won't die. But it feels like something's dying.
Right.
And what's dying is the control that the ego has over you on having to justify or verify itself that it has value and it's important.
That's exactly the heart of it. It has the ego feels that it has to justify itself to the others. This whole idea of defining yourself is feeding the ego from both directions. It's giving it a box, a rule, a role, and it's also putting it into a hierarchy. Well, I'm better than this one, and smarter than this one, and faster than this one, and these people are wrong, and I'm right, and
right.
I'm the great doctor so and so, and you must listen to me, and all that role playing or definition. And then the other side of it, others look at you and define you. They say, well, you're a superstar, you're great this or great that, and I have to defer to you. So it feeds that ego too, this whole idea of I'm being recognized for my role, for how great I am. And if you try to give that up, the ego screams. It's like it's literally feeling like it's dying. In some ways, it is.
Well, it's no longer in control.
Right.
Which is the biggest fear that the ego has, because frankly, your ego is the result of trying to make sure that the body is in a safe space. And it has reasoned that it's got to control all these things for the body to be in a safe space. So it equates the loss of ego with the loss of safety.
Yeah. There's a fear element there, of course.
Yes. If you go into fear or survival mode, the body doesn't really understand that it's a mental construct.
No, not at all.
It goes into all the reactions.
Cortisol and all the stress hormones. And if we move into Tolle's statement a little bit here too, the ego is incredibly concerned with how others define it.
Right.
As we just mentioned, the ego wants to be seen for what it defines itself to be. I'm the great so and so. I have these powers. I have this much money. I have this degree of fame. I'm the author of this and the purveyor of that. Whatever it is.
Yes.
And then it wants to see through the actions of others that definition is taking hold. This is the great social media construct, where people create a persona.
Oh, yeah.
And then they want it to be recognized, as being an influencer or something. And they want to both define themselves and also to receive the accolades or the feedback of others, recognizing that definition or defining you as.
Right. It gives far too much power to other people over you.
Yes. It gives incredible power to others, but the ego doesn't care as long as it's getting fed. And then I think what he says here is if you start by giving up, which is always a great place to start. You start by giving up defining yourself, you come to life. And then as the little monk in the story, that the Japanese monk, is that so monk, others will still try to define you. You're sitting there now in being in presence, and they come up to you and say, well, you're the so and so who did this, or you're the great this. I want to worship you. I want to give you this. I want to, and you you have to see that for what it is. Their definition defines them much more, or reflects on them much more than it reflects on you. When somebody comes up to you and assumes who you are and treats you in a certain way, and like when they would come in through the kids who were in the cancer ward, and they would define them entirely by their disease,
Right.
or by their age, or by their condition, or whatever it might be. And that told you so much about them. They didn't want to see a person. They didn't want to see a being. They didn't want to identify at a human level because that was too scary. That was getting too close, that this human being and I are the same, and this one is suffering, and I might too. No, you want to say, oh, I'm here to help you. I'm social worker XYZ, or this charitable organization sent me, and I've got the things for you. And defining you by the fact that you are in a box that we'll never go. That'll never happen to us. It just happened to you, and we're so sorry for you, and trying to push them into this. It's safety, right? It's literally pushing them into a box so that you don't share it. That this isn't me. This is you. This is absolutely you.
Well, your troubles or your challenges are uniquely your own.
That's true, yes.
It's just the way things run. But different groups, cultures, have different ways of handling that. For instance, the Jewish tradition, especially in New York, they believe in doing charity. So there was a group that came, I'd say, every couple of weeks into the hospital. They would get the name of every Jewish patient on the pediatrics ward, and they would bring food, sandwiches and whatnot.
I remember this, yeah.
Yeah, and they would only feed the Jewish kids.
The kids on their list.
Yeah. And it was very interesting because Chris's roommate, who was one of his friends, they came in and they basically ignored Christopher completely, and they concentrated on...
And not in a mean way. It's just they weren't there for him.
Right, exactly. They were going to do what they were planning to do. And and Omid, who was Chris's friend, would talk to them, and then he looked at them. And then he looked at Chris like, why aren't you giving him food? Like, it's not, he's not Jewish.
He's not on our list.
Right. And it was the funniest thing because Omid went over to Chris and wrapped his arm around Chris. And Chris wrapped his arm around Omid and said, but we're brothers.
Remember that.
And the ladies just froze in their tracks.
Right.
And looked at them both. They couldn't look more dissimilar, honestly. But they looked at them and said, "You're brothers?" They said, "Yes, we're brothers." Okay. So they went and dug out another sandwich and began to share. But it was that definition got broken.
Yes.
By the children themselves. They're defining themselves. We're brothers.
Well, and I think the definition there was the true one. If you must define yourself, you define yourself as a being.
Yes.
And this being and I, from Omen's point of view, are brothers. We don't recognize your definition. We give you who we are.
Yes.
And if you're going to give me something nice, don't ignore my brother.
Right.
If you want to be good to me, you have to be good to
my brother.
To my brother too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very evocative of you all men are my brother. Who's my brother? It's everyone.
Who is my neighbor?
Who's my neighbor? Exactly. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. Who was the neighbor, or who was the who treated the man who was assaulted at the side of the road as his brother? Well, the one who was actually furthest away from him, not the priest, not the other Jew, but this Samaritan, who at that time would have been considered almost an outcast. The whole point is it's the actions. But here, what Omid and Chris did is they said, we don't recognize your definition.
Right.
You're limiting you.
Right.
Without, not in so many words, but that's what they did. And by proclaiming this brotherhood, they in essence told these very well-meaning people that what you're doing is an affront, and we'll be nice about it. We're not going to get offended, but it's an affront to all of us, our shared humanity. This is the definition. It isn't the ego's definition. It's the definition of presence and of being. And if you're going to come and operate in that dimension, you have to recognize that we're all there.
Right.
And they did.
Yeah, well.
And that's good.
I'm just reading on in Tolle's quote. You won't die. You will come to life.
Yes.
And don't be concerned with how others define you. When they define you, they are limiting themselves. So it's their problem.
It's their problem.
As a perfect example. And frankly, they solved the problem. I give them credit for solving the problem.
Well, and I think this also goes, unfortunately, both these young men have passed away, Omid first and then Chris, but this also goes to the stage at which they found themselves. They had already had, I would say all pretense stripped away.
Yes.
They understood that their humanity was not a function of their circumstances. They understood that the roles, weren't real. That the ego was something that they had gotten past because they had been put in a situation where they had to, and they had found each other as certainly two children stuck in a terrible situation, but they also found each other as just good friends. They were, as you said, very dissimilar. Tall and short, and the age. There was a huge age difference. There was cultural differences, everything, but none of that mattered. Those are all definitions. Mm-hmm. You're too young. You're too old. You're too tall. You're too short.
Not
you're
the
this
right
culture,
religion.
that culture, this religion, that religion. None of that mattered. Those are all wonderful ways of separating. Wonderful ways of ego definition and of saying you're wrong and I'm right. and if you espouse them, you're feeding the ego and you're limiting yourself. You're putting yourself in yet another box or series of boxes. And once you get out and you see with clear eyes that the being is here and you recognize another and you have a relationship at the being level, when someone comes into your presence with a definition, you respond with well, is that so? Or in this case, he's my brother. He's your brother? Yeah, he's my brother. So don't give me something. You don't give something to my brother. And they're like, okay. At least as you said, they
adapted.
They adapted, which reflects very well on them. They were able to see that this definition didn't work.
Well, they were able to see that these two boys actually felt a brotherhood. Okay, it wasn't just like I'll pretend this and you pretend that and
Right. It wasn't a role.
They weren't putting roles on. They felt that they were blood brothers. And in a great sense, they are.
Yeah, and in a very true sense, as we all are here, dreaming the common dream, we all are. But that the ego loves to deny that because that's just too close to the bone.
Yeah. But as I said, they adapted. Gave them a lot of credit for the adaptation.
Yeah, they certainly did. And to come back to this of how others define you, you can always feel it. You can feel when someone comes into your presence and they almost immediately want out of let's say fear, but it's a necessity. They need to know what handles you have, who you are, how
Right.
how do I talk to you, how do I interact with you? Are you over me or under me? Can I push you around? Do I have to listen to you? Do I have to do I have to defer, or do you have to defer to me? It's all about power. It's all about roles. It's all about ego. And then there's these sort of aggressive way. You mentioned, the pretending. There's people who will come into your presence and they will aggressively or passive aggressively demand that you play the role that they want you to play, that you fit in the box and that you don't stray. And if you start to try and tell them something else, no, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know that about you. What I want you to be is who I defined you to be. And you also see it if somebody who has put you into a box, you're the little kid who does this, and if you grow up or you change or you expand or you go outside of the role, they get angry. They're like, wait a minute, you're not this. You're not. You can't be this great. You can't be this smart. You can't be. No, you're little Johnny, and you're this, and you're cute, and come over here and do this for me, because if you do things I'm not that are outside my box, I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel good about that. Who are you trying to show up? That's the ego reaction to not fitting in the box.
It's very narcissistic.
Very narcissistic, very controlling, and very defensive of their definition. Their definition is not just your a box. It's an ironclad cage, and you can't get out of there, because otherwise, then maybe I was wrong, and that can never be true. I can never be wrong about people. You can't change. You'll make me uncomfortable if you change.
Imagine that.
But people do that. It's sort of an aggressive, passive-aggressive. You must be the person that I want you to be,
right?
Or I'm not happy.
My world is going to fall.
My world is going to fall apart, right?
Yeah, and you're just looking at them like, we only met 10 minutes ago.
Right. There's Tolle. When they define you, they're limiting themselves. They're literally saying to you that I can't deal with the whole of you. I want you to fit in this box. And if you try to push out of it, they either run away in fear, or they get angry and they want to push you back in.
Yeah, no, that's just everyone you met on that floor, the pediatric cancer ward. Your parents especially are under high stress. All they can do is react half the time. And if they don't react, they're in, just this close to shock.
Well, yeah.
So you tried to be as considerate as possible to another parent, because it was just, horrendous. You're in there. And it's, again, the limiting definitions, especially when you're in a hierarchical environment, that like to reach out and define roles.
Yeah. I mean, we should probably go back and take a little break, but I think on the other side, let's talk a little bit about the stratification of roles in societies too. But anyway, let's give up and go back to the studio, and when we come back on the other side, we'll see if we resuscitated ourselves enough to continue.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. Moonstones and Murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on The X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
Listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, T-Man. Hashtag fruit. But no, that'll be an inside joke that no one will get. But that's okay. Tonight we're giving up tonight. We started out the show at the beginning of the show. We just gave up, and then in the second half we're going to give up harder. But no, actually, we've been talking a little bit about giving up defining yourself, and defining yourself is something that people are almost trained to from the very beginning. But what I wanted to go into a little bit in this half hour, if you wouldn't mind, Margaret, is sort of that stratification of society and societal roles, especially in societies where the strictures are sort of baked into the cake. And I know Asian societies and Near East and Far East societies have a lot more of that, although it's in every human culture to some degree, and
Right.
it's waxed and waned throughout the centuries in the West and everywhere else, and a lot of that has to do with safety. And the stratification of a culture and of a society is almost always to benefit those who are quote unquote on top.
Right.
They want to exploit and to
Control.
but to have the buy-in of others in the society, such that they are on top and that they're recognized that this is our role. We are the leaders, the Brahmins, the spiritual this, the gurus, whatever it is. the political leaders, and that we have to be deferred to and feted and taken care of and listened to and obeyed, and or perhaps there's a tyrannical hierarchy where you must do everything that the state or the powers that be require of you, and these things tend to be self-reinforcing. In a truly stratified and tyrannical society, there are those who find it their role to snitch or to use their own minusculely higher authority to oppress those below them. It becomes this self-reinforcing, and then if you rebel from that, you're a pariah, you're an outcast. You yourself trying to give up defining yourself is not allowed. You have to accept our definition, or we will imprison you, kill you, or otherwise do harm to you.
Yeah. No, this is a society that's stratified like that. Depends on the people staying within their defined roles.
No stepping out.
And you can't step out. Now, the interesting thing about America is that it basically said in the Constitution, all men are created equal. And that means women as well, mind you. But
all beings.
You're a being. Not to say it's been a smooth road, because the people that are in charge usually don't want change that goes contrary to what has been
tradition, the roles,
economically speaking,
economically,
this is what the foundation has been for helping them manage their business or their plantation or
the feudal system or
feudal
any of those,
system.
yes.
Oh my gosh, the feudal system in Europe.
Yeah. Or the whole, the caste system, all these stratifying societies.
Just understanding that you, in the feudal system, you didn't own the land you were working.
No.
Well, people don't get that.
No.
They think that, okay, I'm in this hut on this piece of land, and I'm planting stuff. So that family must own it. It's like, no.
Mm-mm.
No, you're just there to work it and bring the product of your labor, good or bad, to your lord.
You had to tribute. You had to. You got your pittance or whatever it was, and everything else belonged to the Lord. Yeah, it was incredibly stratified.
And most of the world was built that way, where for you to own land was unheard of. This is why when they sent ships out trying to find new land, because everybody was fighting over all the old land. As they said.
All the land was snapped up. I mean, in fact, in these stratified societies, and even well after the feudal system collapsed, you still had the idea of baronies and duchies, and the king owning the king's land. In England, this was in the well within the Enlightenment, well within the Renaissance. If you were to take an animal, a deer, let's say, on the king's land, your life was forfeit. Well, isn't that a lovely system to set up?
Right.
So we're kind of digressing, but these types of societies are limited from without, but they require people to internalize these limits, to buy into them. And then if you try to rebel, if you try to say, well, I want to do this particular role. Well, that role isn't open to you. Serfs don't get to do whatever, or those in this particular caste don't get to do that, or whatever it is. It is an affront to the human spirit. It's an affront to the being, and the ego still loves it no matter what. But if the being rises up and wants to break this cage, you're going to get a lot of blowback, a lot of pushback from a stratified society, and then the individuals within it for whom this society works will use their egos and their powers and all kinds of
whatever
mechanisms,
whatever story that they are telling themselves to rule over the populace.
Yeah.
It's like, what was it?
Divine Right of Kings.
Divine Right of Kings.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Can I sign up for that? I'd like to be divine, or pharaohs, or any of those things.
Well, it's just, this is the reason. They're saying, oh, well, I got chosen.
Man, got some, hey man, I got the stamp right here. See?
Well, it's just, that's why America was such an experimental...
and such a threat in many ways.
Yes, it was so different. And the freedom that they were presenting, it made people's hearts sing, because they could choose on their own without being penalized their religion, their own expressions within their own little
land.
Culture.
Yes.
They can set things up the way they wanted to. They can help each other the way they wanted to. It was just unheard of
at the time. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk about it historically speaking, it was seen as an existential threat to these hierarchical societies, which is why we had a number of the conflicts that we had post the revolution. And then when you saw the French Revolution, which came about 20 or so years afterward, which was seen as sort of a contagion of these terrible ideas of liberty, getting across the pond, if you will. And so that was. But again, before we go off into a history lesson, these types of individual expressions are antithetical to roles. If you have a society which is stratified, again, it benefits those who are in the upper strata, if you will. Mm-hmm. But if you have a society which is fluid and free and much more in tune with the true nature of the being, the true nature of the human spirit, which is that you aren't defined by anything. You are whatever you want to be, and you don't have to be anything. You just are. As Tolle says in the last line here, you can only lose something that you have. And having means, the I-aming, the ego, I am this, I am that, I'm the other thing. You can lose those things. Form, you can lose. You can lose everything that, all the objects which you have and hold dear, they all decay.
Material.
But you can't lose you, what you actually are. Your being is not only eternal, but it's inviolate. And it can never be destroyed. Only the form can be affected. And that's the truth. When you say that to somebody, so you are an inviolate, eternal being, currently incarnate in flesh, in a form. You say that to somebody and they understand it. It resonates at such a deep level that the truth of it is undeniable. And when you get there, and you get that clear sight, the roles start to look like roles. They start to look like pretend play. They start to look like, well, I'm pretending to be a doctor today. Would you like some medicine? And you're like, hey, I want you not to be pretending to be a doctor. But no, you're like, but that's your role is something you can inhabit for a period of time. Yes, right now I'm going to be your doctor, and I'm going to help you get better to the best of my ability. But that's not who I am. That's who I currently am functioning as. Pretending to be is sounds worse, but it's true. It's my current task is to help you get better. And I've studied for years and years, but that's not who I am. I just happen to have more skill than you have at the moment. So of the two of us, if we were going to pick, I'll pick the doctor thing and you pick the patient, because that's going to work out better for both of us. But the actual being is the being. You say, well, you're suffering now, and I can help you. So my being reaches out to you with my training and my skills. Great. It doesn't make you different from me. It makes us the same. We connect at the suffering level. I want to help you not suffer. Isn't that wonderful? And I've learned how to do all these wonderful things that can help you not suffer. Let me help you. That's the being to the being. not a role. Oh, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I'm here to, I'm very, very important. You should defer to me. Okay. Could you just fix my knee? Or whatever it is.
Well, phrase Tolle is using is when you interact with people, don't be there primarily as a function or a role.
Right.
But as a field of conscious presence. Conscious presence, when a person is truly in that state of presence, is undeniable. Another person will automatically recognize that there is presence here. There's a light here. And they can't get around it, okay? It can't be explained as, oh, well, she's just a nurse or a doctor or a patient, or the orderly or something. This function, that function. The presence that's there, regardless of the quote-unquote role you're supposed to be playing, is what allows people to make the connection with you. And then you can discuss or whatever it was that was weighing heavily on the other person's heart usually comes out.
You do that all the time.
But what I'm trying to say is, defining it by these words is again, it's a mental construct.
Yeah.
The being state is not a mental construct. The being state sees the mental construct, can appreciate it, has really no opinion, frankly. It just looks at it like, okay, so this is what I have got to move through.
Right.
But the being state is concerned with another's being state. And that's usually the case. When someone is present, they are always concerned with the state of the other person that they're interacting with. Because the clarity of communication depends on whether or not the heart can receive what the presence is bringing forward. Because usually what happens is there's a need, a wound, a bit of darkness, and they're looking for a bit of light. Presence is nothing but light.
Yeah.
So if they turn to presence and ask, it always responds heart to heart. That's how you know when presence is real, not a pretend. I'm pretending to be present.
Well, and to go back to that example with Oma and Chris, the presence, the two of them had a presence connection, a relationship there. And then the witness of it, when Oma said, "This is my brother," the ladies who were there to deliver these little goodies to the kids that are on their list recognized that the list didn't matter anymore. That this presence connection required a response from them, and they came up to it, which is the human being below all the roles, or that encompasses all the roles. It's not below; it's there always. When it sees a true connection, perceives that, which it bypasses all the boxes and goes right to that true connection of humanity, which the undercurrent which binds us all. It says, how could we not respond to this? And so the response is genuine. It's a heartfelt. It's a connection. It's like, yeah, I see the humanity in you, and yeah, of course we'll share because this is your brother.
Right.
It had, the words don't matter. The form that it takes, that Omed went over and they hugged and they said, "This is my brother." That's just the overt witnessing of it. But the connection was far below that, in the sense of wordless,
was obvious.
actionless, obvious connection. There was a bond between these two of brotherhood,
Right.
of true familial connection. And in recognition of that, they dug around until they found an extra treat. You know, who knows how they got it, whatever. But there it was. And that's presence, recognizing presence, and then saying, well, I have to do something to honor that.
Right. Right. And, you know, we have opportunities like that
All the time.
all the time.
All the time.
You know, when you're addressing another person, have you put them in a role? Are you addressing the role that you think they should be in, or?
That happens all the time, too, especially on social media.
Well, you're addressing the image that's there.
Yeah, the persona.
But just to be able to physically to just greet someone, a physical greeting, just thank you, just pleasantries, you know?
Mm.
Sometimes I wonder with social media, because they seem to just concentrate only on this level of interaction, when what your soul's looking for is a soul connect.
Yeah.
And you can't get a soul connect if you're dealing with some sort of simulacrum or avatar that somebody put together.
Almost defensively in that regard. You know, you may say avatars and simulacrums. These are ego armor, or the boxes are also armor for the ego.
Well, you do have to come to the truth of something. And there is a lot of deception. But it's, again, what about human interaction?
Yeah.
You know, but can you actually enter a room and know how to behave civilized? And that's what they're finding, by the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, the consequences of this.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because the kids have been home. What they found is a lot of thechildren don't know how to behave in a large group.
Or just in the presence of others. But again, these are ego roles. Even that. The way to reconnect people is again at the heart level, at the being level, the presence level. And so this idea of giving up defining yourself is also telling the ego voice in your head, which is constantly trying to tell you who you are. You're this, you're that, you're the other thing. You know, not paying attention.
Right.
They say silencing the voice, but you can just ignore it, and it will get quieter and quieter and quieter. You can use the "is that so" on your ego. Your ego says, "Oh, you're this and you're that and you're that," and the being can literally say, "Is that so?" And the ego doesn't have an answer for that, because it's not so.
Right.
And you expand your field of conscious presence. Yes, it has an ego in it. And the ego is chattering all the time. Well, fine. You have one crazy person on your presence street corner that chatters all the time. But you ignore that. You ignore that ego, and they get quieter and quieter. And the presence that you are, finding others, relationships are all about a presence connection at their base. If they're true relationships, they're at a presence connection. And yes, you may have a role. I'm a father, you're a mother, we're this, we're that, but these are all just roles. And you fulfill them to the best of your ability, and you can become extremely skilled, but don't say I am that. You say, I'm in this particular moment, I'm fulfilling that role.
Right. Right.
All the players, the world is but a stage and we are all but players on it. That's a very prescient way of looking at, life. and to realize that it's just your role and you just happen to be in it right now, and later on you get to do something else is a much saner way of doing it.
True.
And the thing that I think again that we should take away from this is that, and you just said it, when you're interacting, the ego wants you to primarily identify yourself and others in the roles. It basically wants you to become the player of the play. And you want to be the player, the play, the stage, the audience, everything. That's you. That's your being. You're the whole universe of you. And the ego is just a part that you can play for a period of time and realize it's a part and realize that it's not you. And you can do it as well as you can. In fact, to do it the best ever is perfectly fine. Put your whole self into the role you play for the time that you play it, because that's the moment of now. In this moment of now, it requires me to be the best doctor on earth. Well, here I am. That's not who I am.
Right.
Here I am is not who I am. Here I am is I'm present. Who I am is I'm limited and I'm in a box. Don't put yourself in a box, and don't let anyone else put you in a box.
Yeah, don't.
I think there's a box opening up for us, though, right now.
Uh-huh.
And it's the end of the show box.
Okay.
So, without further ado,
All right.
I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.